Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is Renee Farris. Renee is a journalist, kind of like I am, and covering some of the same things. She's also a co-founder of the CSR Consultancy United Cause Agency. Renee, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on here speaking with you.
You and I met in the most fun way imaginable, just about. We were on a cruise to the Dominican Republic last month. That was sure a lot of fun. It was great to meet you there and to read your analysis, too, of the cruise. It was really good.
Thank you.
So, Renee, you are an adept storyteller, and you've offered up some tips and advice for more effective storytelling. And your first is to utilize virtual reality. Tell us a little bit about how people who are trying to tell a cause story can use virtual reality. That seems so intimidating to most of us.
Well, I think the main intimidating part about virtual reality is that creating one of these films costs anywhere from 100 to 150, but 150 grand. But I can assure you that the payout is well worth the investment. At least that's what nonprofits and companies are finding out. So I actually am working on an article right now where I list 10 ways that virtual reality and 360 films are making the world a better place. And one of the biggest ways that we've seen that take place is in the realm of social impact storytelling for nonprofits. So I think we're getting a little feedback noise.
Yeah, you may want to just turn the volume down on your speakers.
Okay. I will do that. Let me know if that's better.
It sounds better.
Okay, great. So I know that the United Nations just had their first ever World Humanitarian Summit in Istanbul, Turkey, just a couple days ago. And they actually showed 9 virtual reality films that they have created over the past year or so. And these different virtual reality films. So first of all, let me just explain the difference between 360 film and virtual reality. So 360 film, you've probably seen people, they look really weird. They're wearing these big black boxes over their face, and their hands are like feeling up in the air. They may be crawling on the ground, like they're looking for something. When they're done, when they take off the mask, you know, they may have some tears coming down their faces depending on what they watched, or they may have freaked out, or they may have had a blast. You know, VR experiences vary widely, and so they may have ridden a roller coaster, they may have just visited a refugee camp. I mean, the applications are endless, but 360 is when you're able to walk through an environment. Usually it's done with computer graphics. You're walking through an environment and you're able to interact with different things. You can pick up objects, you can throw things, but 360 film is when there's basically a live video that has been rolling and you're able to look wherever that camera can look. So you can look up at the sky, down at your feet, you can turn around, and so you have that full 360 scene, and that's what we're seeing in a lot of immersive journalism. So what nonprofits and organizations are doing is creating, basically are putting you in somebody else's shoes. So for example, the United Nations created Clouds Over Sidra, and they were doing it in cooperation with Verse. Verse actually made the film for the United Nations, and they took it to the World Economic Forum. And so there's a picture out there of like hundreds of people with these at the World Economic Forum wearing these big black glasses. And what they were watching was Clouds Over Sidra, which is the story you're put in the shoes of someone who's in a refugee camp over in Syria, and you have a little girl who's 12 or 13 kind of take you through the camp, and you see what it's like. And so the benefit has been that the United Nations has seen donations double when people watch these films, and not only are donations, the number of people doubling, the donation amount is going up 10%. So it's definitely been very beneficial for them.
Wow, that's a powerful, powerful impact. Now, are the 360-degree cameras, those are available at either at or near consumer prices? What kind of prices are people paying for those 360-degree cameras now? Do you know?
It varies. You can get a small handheld Theta camera, which I should have brought mine over here to show. But it's shaped kind of like a little remote control, and it has a fisheye lens. For those of you who are familiar with cameras, it has a fisheye lens on both sides. You can get that on Amazon for $300. It takes film and also take images, and it's lower quality, so you wouldn't want to use it for a big production film that you're going to show to hundreds of thousands of people. But it's great for learning how to use 360, and it's very portable, so it's very convenient. The larger rigs, I want to say, are closer to 20 grand, and that's where they may have, there are many different types of cameras out there, but a lot of them are shaped like a giant disc, and they'll have about 8 different GoPro cameras or different cameras in it. Or the news agencies like Riot or New York Times, or that would be for film production agencies.
Yeah, fascinating. This is really interesting stuff. Now, at some measure, though, the story remains a vital part of this. How do you incorporate the technology into the story without having the technology become the story? It seems like that would miss the point.
Right, for sure. So in the 360 videos, what happens is they take the camera and they set it on a tripod in different locations. And so basically you're standing right where the camera is and you're able to look all around, and the action is going on around you. And I mean, if you can think about the last time you went to maybe an IMAX and you saw like the whole dome above you, imagine if there was that same dome below you too. So you can look all around, and it really is, it does feel immersive. So you feel like you're standing there. It's as close to a firsthand experience as you can possibly get. And when you're feeling that way, if you don't see the camera, then you don't really think about it. In the early days, they had it to where you could see the base of the tripod. And in that type of film, you know, you did realize, oh, I'm actually a camera. I'm not really standing here. But right now, the technology is so good and the editing is so good that you don't really feel like it's an experience with technology. You feel like you're really relating to the people that you're with.
How do you use this technology, though, to connect with the story?
Right. So when you're in that environment, especially with virtual reality, you're able to walk around and see different things, pick up different things. And so I remember I was watching a film by the United Nations about, it was called Waves of Grace, and it's about this woman who survived Ebola. And she tells her story, and you just see her interacting with her environment. And at the end of the story, you feel so connected to her because she took you into her home, you met her friends, you really interacted with her. And at the end of the film, I just wanted to reach out and give her a hug. And I don't really know how to explain it other than you have to experience it, and you'll realize the connection is there. And the camera quality is getting so much better over time that it really is seeming more and more realistic. And even now they're starting to add some external sensors to this that make it feel like a real environment. So for example, if you were in some more of the games, if you were walking on a plank, then you would actually be in an environment, in a room where you're walking on a plank. Or if there was an earthquake, then they would start rumbling the room. And so they're starting to add to other sensations that people have, and it really does feel immersive. And then there are some organizations that afterwards, like for example, Riot, RYOT, they have a call to action after every news story they tell. And so, for example, they did a news story that was very compelling. It was about confinement. And it was an immersive journalism piece where you were standing in the cell of a person that was in solitary confinement. And they talked about how there are 80,000 people that stay in these rooms for 23 hours every day, sometimes for decades, up to 40 years. And some of these people are children. And so during that time, you'll hear different sounds coming through the hallway. and you look around and you feel so trapped, and it's easy to see how you could go insane after a few hours. And so after you watch the short film, Riot gives you a way to sign a petition to end this type of solitary confinement, starting with the children. And we have thousands of children that are in this type of confinement. So that allows you not only to stand in that person's shoes for a brief moment, as close as you possibly can, but then also to take action and do something about it once that experience is over. And these experiences, they've done tests, and there's a huge difference between the way a person remembers an experience like this and the way they remember watching a film or reading a story. This gets logged into somebody's brain as more of a first-hand experience, so it's a much stronger memory. And so people are more likely to remember it and to tell other people about it. So that's kind of a way that they continue to be engaged in this type of story.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Renee, those are really tremendous insights. I appreciate you sharing them. I want to just tap into your some personal issues here, just to get some insights from you as someone who is someone I look up to and admire. And first, you are, because you're someone I admire, I want to know who you look up to as a role model.
I don't think there are many people that I could point to that are inspirational to me. I think that in general, though, the people that inspire me are millennials. It's my generation. We have seen things in the world that we know are broken. And not only do we realize that, but we want to do something about it. And so you see millennials are changing their lifestyles. They are becoming more sustainable, more considerate of others. They're more peaceful. They're changing their work. They want to work in careers where they give back to society and do good in the world. And they're changing the way that they help people. So they are, volunteering more on skills. They're, engaging in advocacy to change the world. So I'm inspired by millennials.
Oh, that's great. Now, you could be doing anything. You're a very talented woman. Why have you chosen to pursue things that have a cause at their root? Why is that so important to you personally?
I think it's just part of my DNA. I think, honestly, it's just kind of wired into me. I mean, when I was a child, I wanted to become a nurse so that I could help people. And the type of work that I've wanted to do has evolved over time, but I've always wanted to be in a role where I'm helping people. I think one of the most impactful situations in my life was when I went to Kenya and Tanzania in 2012. And I volunteered with a nonprofit there for 450 children who were living on the streets of a slum. And they were hungry. They didn't have enough food to eat. Their clothes were in tatters. They didn't have education. They didn't even have toys. And they were really lucky if they had a roof over their heads. And that experience, I spent about a month over there. That experience changed my whole worldview. And it helped me prioritize what's really important. And since then, I've made several trips back to developing countries, and I've started working, in corporate social responsibility because I believe that companies can be a force for good. And I've done plenty of volunteer work with nonprofits, but I know that they lack a lot of the resources oftentimes. And so I have an MBA background, and I'm a huge believer in using business as a force for good.
Fantastic. One last question. We ask all our guests for an impact hack, a tip to help us do more good and have more impact. What's yours?
I would say talk to people and really listen. Whenever I grew up in a very conservative environment, and now I live in Los Angeles, California, which is extremely liberal. And I've seen both sides of conservative and liberal politics and lifestyles and worldviews. And I think that, and I've also visited all sorts of different denominations, from mosques to Christian churches to Buddhist temples. And I think that the more that I see of the world, And the more people I meet from different backgrounds, the more I realize we have so much in common. And the more we understand each other and are able to relate to each other, the faster we're going to be able to solve the problems in the world.
Wow, that's a great insight. I certainly see the same thing as I travel around the world. There's so much more we have in common than there is that separates us. It's a shame that we spend so much time arguing and fighting. So great insight. So Renee, before you go, tell us how people can connect with you and find you and learn more about what you're doing.
Sure. So on Twitter, you can find me at Farris, R-A, which is Farris, R-A. And you can shoot me an email. My general email address is renee.a.farris, Farris, @gmail.com. And you can also look me up. On my personal website is thesocialinnovator.com. And my new corporate social responsibility consulting and creative agency is unitedcauseagency.com. So you can find me there. I look forward to chatting with you.
Fantastic. Well, Renee, we wish you every success in changing the world.
Thank you.
Let's do some good.